So we all set, ladies? Okay. I guess I'll hold this. This is better, isn't it? Okay. So, hello everyone. Thank you for attending this very important meeting. I'm Lydia Wilson, the chair of the nominating committee. The committee is formed every year according to the MCOA bylaws. The chair, that's me this year, is a former board member and is selected by the current president of the board of directors. The rest of the committee is made up of representatives from the 4 largest amenity groups and 2 at-large members. I know not all of the committee members are here, but if you are here as I read your name, just stand up for a minute, please. So this year the committee members are Tom Barreca, representing the Moss Creek Golf Club, Tom Harkins, Moss Creek Racquet Club, Susan Forrest, Moss Creek Nature Club, David Yarto, Moss Creek Bone Owners Association. Cheryl Provost, I believe, is away enjoying vacation. She was one of our at-large members, as well as Linda Solario. I believe Linda was away also today, our second at-large member. This was a very engaged group, dedicated to including a representative mix of members on the board of directors slate. Allow me to take a minute to address 2 of the misconceptions about this process. First of all, the current board has no influence over this process whatsoever beyond Chris Herbishon appointing me as the chairperson. And second, I hope you take this in the right vein. This is definitely not a good old boys network. We had 4 ladies on the committee. We have 2 ladies on the slate this year. So maybe it's and I won't say it, good old ladies. No, that doesn't sound right. So much for trying to be a stand-up comedian. Okay. This committee approached over 80 members to encourage them to apply. Administration sent out over 10 communication reminders about the process. And I thank not only the committee members for their dedication and hard work, but also the staff members who helped us in the process, especially Susan Brown, Brenda Cipiani, Melissa Shear, and Susanna Johnston. And of course, Jim O'Connor and his staff for getting this room ready for us today. The structure of the Moss Creek Owners Association is defined by the governing documents of the association. The role of the board of directors is to carry out the duties of the association as stated in the articles of the incorporation and covenants. So members elect the board of directors. That's what you're here for, to see who you're going to elect. The board of directors' responsibility is to establish policy, hire and review the general manager, approve the annual budget and any modifications to that budget, monitor the financial performance, develop and approve the strategic plan, and many other responsibilities as outlined in Policy Statement 03-16. The general manager is responsible for the day-to-day operations of the association, and you, the members, are responsible to enjoy living in Moss Creek and to vote. So please, that is your other responsibility. The purpose of this evening is to let the candidates for the board present their views and vision for Moss Creek before the election process. There are 3 openings to fill for 2025, and we have 5 excellent candidates, and in alphabetical order they are Ginny Crispo, Chris Gallert, Claire Goddard, Robin Hughes Taylor, and Rick Kamen. Please note that we did have 6 candidates initially, but unfortunately, due to personal reasons, Stan Schrader had to withdraw from the race. Now for some rules of engagement for the question and answer period. First, each candidate will have up to 4 minutes to present themselves to you. After they have all spoken, we will then have the Q&A period. We're using an open mic this year instead of index cards. So for those of you who are here in person, we will be asking you to stand up and ask your question. Our microphone holders are Pam Svensson and Payman Shanlou. Thank you both for helping us in this process. Members will be asked to state their name, then ask one, and I have that in very big letters, 1 question. This is not a time to make speeches, so I will be diligent in controlling this process. Please state that if your question is for one, some, or all of the candidates, and the candidates' responses will be limited to 2 minutes. For those participating via Zoom, please click the chat in the meeting control toolbar to submit your question. You will need to include your name and whether the question again is for one, some, or all of the candidates. We will read your question. Actually, Brenda will read your question. We have a hard stop at 5:30. However, the candidates have agreed to stay for an additional 20 minutes or so if you wish to speak to them individually. We randomly drew the candidates' names earlier to establish the order of presentation. So to start us off, here is Ginny. Ginny, is it easier for you to hold this, or you want me to put it back in the hole?
I can hold it.
Go.
Hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'm fresh from upstate New York, where it was 41 degrees the morning I left.
Hold that. Ms.
Okay.
Costello, if you could hold that up a little bit closer.
Closer?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, we'll just talk louder. I decided to run for the board after living here since 1998. I decided this time because I see a changing community. There are many different reasons for that. There has been an influx of newcomers in the last 4 or 5 years, I would say. And we have a new general manager who is, in my opinion, a breath of fresh air. When I lived here earlier, I was mostly part-time. 7 years ago, we moved here full-time. But when I lived here earlier, my opinion of the board of directors was that they just handled the money. I didn't think they had any other duties. Since we have this new general manager, I have discovered that there are many other things that the board can do and will do to improve our community. One of the things that I see as a challenge is communication. We send out paper, or not really paper, but we send out online messages, the Advocate and the Next Week at the Creek, which I have to continually remind myself to say instead of This Week at the Creek. We send that out, but we have no idea if anybody's reading it. I'm on the ARB. I've been on the ARB for 3 years. And we put little things in here and there, but we don't know that people, A, read, or B, understand what they're reading. A lot of people don't know, for example, that if they want to make a change to the exterior of their home, they have to go by the ARB. And I always say to myself, why don't they know that? Who dropped the ball? Who didn't tell them? Who didn't give them the right information? And we continue to publish things to help you or help them understand that this is a gated community. This isn't your average suburban development. We have rules, we have regulations, we support an infrastructure, we support employees, and the decisions that the board makes are not only for golfers or people who have boats or any other small group in the community. They're for everybody. So I think we need to, there's got to be a way to improve our communication to everyone beyond what we're doing now. I'm not sure what it is. In my answer to my questions in the Advocate, I suggested a bulletin board. I don't know, I'm a teacher. We always have bulletin boards. So I think we need to increase awareness of what it means to live in a gated community. We need to encourage people to read things. We need to somehow get everybody, not everybody, but at least 80% of the community engaged in what it means to live here. And it sure is great to live here. We need to unite both people like me, who are pretty old, with people who are not so old, and people who are downright young. It's kind of scary sometimes. So that's my plank on my platform is communication. Thank you.
Thank you, Ginny. Next up is Claire. Yep. Oh, sorry.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah. So I usually don't have a problem with that. But good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
And first of all, Linnea, thank you, and thanks to the nominating committee. And I really appreciate the opportunity to address all of you here this afternoon. And since I'm relatively new, I just wanted to hit a couple of highlights on my background. So Donna and I, my wife of nearly 49 years, we purchased a home here in Moss Creek in December of 2019, and had never really been in the community before we started looking at houses here. Spent a lot of time on Hilton Head Island, and what a wonderful find this was. So we became full-time, year-round residents in August of 2020. So this is our home, and I'll say more about that in a minute. I retired from work in July of 2021 and kind of immediately dove into a number of areas that were kind of retirement goals of mine. And so I won't touch on everything, although take advantage of many, many amenities here. But I immediately really got into golf. I joined the Men's Links Christian Fellowship and been active in that for the 3 years since I've retired. And then I joined the Finance Committee for Moss Creek in January of this year. And so I'm kind of coming to 3/4 of the year of my first year there. And then outside of Moss Creek, I'll highlight that I've been a member of the World Affairs Council of Hilton Head Island. Identified that soon after retiring, thanks to my wife. And recently I was invited to join their board, so I've been on their board since a little earlier this year. So why am I running? So, you know, Donna and I love Moss Creek, and she likes to tell people, you know, we lived 21 years in Massachusetts, we lived 21 years in Georgia, and we plan to live 21 years here. And I'm actually hoping for a little more. But we love our home, we love the people here, our friends, our neighbors, and we love the beauty of this community. It's spectacular. We have no plans to leave. We're invested here. And then, you know, so over the last couple of years, several, Donna in particular, but several friends have encouraged me to run for the board because they know my background a little bit. And after giving it some really careful consideration, I decided to do it because three things. One is I made a decision that I would commit the time and energy to do the work. I believe I can make a difference, and I believe I'm well qualified. So, you know, so why me? Why do I think that? Well, I have extensive leadership experience in the nuclear electric generation industry, which is an industry committed to high standards, continuous improvement, and the pursuit of excellence, which, by the way, we believe is never achieved. And it was really refreshing to me to hear Scott say in several meetings his commitment to continuous improvement. And boy, I can be on board with that. And I think that's something that's really important. I'm a good communicator. I have a strong focus on results. In the last 10 years of my career, I've been immersed in strategy. And I've led strategic development, implementation, and it's living. It's not static. I mean, we don't develop a strategy and never change it. And then last, I have extensive experience working with board and board committees. And I think I can strengthen or add a lot of value to our strategic design here, as well as improving governance. And I think I'm out of time. Yes, you
Thank you, Claire. He was a little nervous because I was sitting there, and I do have a timer going, so yeah. So thank you, Claire. I'd like to introduce Chris Geller. Chris?
Thank you. Good afternoon, fellow members and neighbors. My name is Chris Gallert, and I'm honored to speak with you today as candidate for the MCOA Board of 2025. As a full-time resident of Moss Creek for the past 7 years, I truly appreciate everything our community has to offer. I'm dedicated to ensuring that Moss Creek continues to grow and thrive, and I believe I can provide the continuity needed for our journey ahead. This past year, I had the privilege of serving as the MCOA Board Vice President. Additionally, I've held several leadership roles here at Moss Creek, including 3 years as Chair of Green and Grounds, Vice Chair of SARA 2 years ago, and the SARA Committee Chair last year. I've worked closely with our golf course and common grounds maintenance teams to set clear expectations and improve conditions around our community. And while we've made significant strides, I recognize that there is still more work to be done. But I am proud of the progress we've achieved together. Creating lasting memories for our members, families, friends, and guests is at the core of our community spirit. One of my favorite events is the annual cider pressing gathering, which I believe embodies the vibrant lifestyle of our community spirit. 4 years ago, I approached Melissa Shear about adding another element to the Halloween festivities by setting up my family's 4th generation cider press near the oak tree across from Trunk or Treat. Last year, we elevated this now annual tradition when our culinary team provided fresh donuts for all that attended. While Melissa is at the heart of the event, it is truly a community effort. There is involvement from our culinary team, security, administration, members, and especially our Moss Creek kids. I'm excited to announce that we will be hosting this event again on October 27th, and I encourage everyone to join in the fun. I'm passionate about preserving the beauty and tranquility of our community, and I believe that effective communication and collaboration are essential to achieving this goal. I understand the importance of being resource conscious, which is why I addressed the Q&A responses in the August Advocate as I did. The 2 initiatives I would want to pursue are Bostwick Pavilion and exploring options for better fitness solution that would include adequate space for our classes, rather than having to shuffle everything around all the time. I'd also like to evaluate whether the admin building should remain as it currently is, or if there is a path forward that better serves all of our membership. Right now, it's very limited in what the value is for that space. I'd also like to evaluate whether the 2 tactics I offered to improve communication were implementing coffee and conversation sessions and quarterly town hall meetings. Both would provide an opportunity for proactive sharing of information. If re-elected to the board, I will focus on completing the new irrigation system for the North Course and ensuring its successful renovation in 2025. I also plan to continue to work closely with our committees and management to define our strategic direction and build on the positive momentum we've established this year. My commitment to member engagement, transparency, and ensuring that every homeowner feels valued and heard will remain a top priority. Before closing, I'd like to take a moment to remember the 21 members we've lost this year. Each of them touched our lives. Excuse me. I didn't plan to do this. While they'll be missed, we do honor their memory by continuing to strengthen our community together. Thanks for considering my candidacy, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts and working alongside you to achieve our shared goals for Moss Creek in the years ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next, I'd like to introduce Rick Kamen.
Thank you. As I read the submissions that we all submitted and the biography, it occurred to me that we all of these want the same things. We all want the best possible member experience while preserving the financial stability of Moss Creek. We all want improved communications. We all want the best possible staff, well-trained, who remain and loyal, because that's one of the things that makes Moss Creek special. And we all want to preserve the beauty of the entire community. So I had to ask myself after I read the biographies of all these folks, what do I bring to this? How can I best help the community? And it seems to me, as my background as a trial lawyer, that one of the things I'm comfortable doing is asking hard questions and insisting on detailed answers. Because part of the dilemma, I mean, dilemma is probably the wrong word. When we saw the recent survey, there's people, and understandably, who are resistant to change. No shame in that. And there's other folks who want to see kind of constant movement. No shame in that. But how do we reconcile those two, that tension? And it seems to me that we reconcile it by continuing to ask difficult questions and insisting on detailed answers, because that's the best way to know the way forward. And let me give you an example of the kinds of questions that I think are out there. And I won't pretend to know the answer, but I saw, again in the recent publication, we have the highest golf plan, the annual plan of any community in the area, almost by a factor of 2. Why is that? Now, there may be really good reasons for that, but it's hard for me to know that running golf carts in Moss Creek is that much different than Colleton River or Belfair or Berkeley Hall or wherever. And the other thing is, when you look at the numbers, and I don't know the exact numbers, but if 200 households subscribe to the golf cart plan, that's about $750,000. Does it take $750,000 a year to run the golf carts? Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But those are the kinds of questions that I think in its supervisory short-term strategy, the board needs to look at. Looking over the horizon in long-term planning, one of the things I raised in my submission is what are the effects going to be of climate change? Of all the surrounding communities, Moss Creek probably has more homes on the marsh than any of the comparable communities. My home is on the marsh. What will climate change do to that? We have a relative who lives in Fort Myers Beach. She's still there. They had to rebuild their home. Their insurance premiums went from around $8,000 or $9,000 to $50,000 a year. What happens if that happens to us? And are there ways as a community where we can proactively look at these issues and address them in advance rather than having to wait until it's a crisis? So asking hard questions, I think, is what I bring to this discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. And now I'd like to introduce Robin. Robin?
Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to the Meet the Candidate event. I'm Robin Hughes Taylor, and honored to be a candidate nominee for the Moss Creek Board. My husband Jim and I live at 6 Moss Creek Court and relocated last year from the Chicago area where we lived for over 30 years. I retired in February of 23 after a 34-year career in financial services for HSBC, which is a global bank headquartered in London. Over the span of my career, I held various executive leadership roles across human resources, sales and marketing, operations, and customer and client servicing. The role I held prior to my retirement was the Chief Administrative Officer for US HR. In my role, I was responsible for running the business of HR, which included the direction of various strategic and tactical initiatives. My work efforts encompassed strategy, finance, governance, employee engagement, and lots more. However, this noted experience is what I feel is most applicable to the role of a Moss Creek board member, and also complementary to the existing members who will make up the future board. I'm currently a member of the Marketing and Communications Committee. As part of the Marcom strategy, I am also the communications liaison to the ARB. The ability to serve has given me the gained insight into both committees' advisory capacity and how they're able to influence the future of Moss Creek. In the August Advocate, I provided some of my views, which I would now like to expand upon. Moss Creek is an amazing community that is full of life, activity, and anchored across common values. We have a vibrant community culture and a lot to offer with our amenities. My position is that we should strive to leverage our existing amenities in a manner that's fiscally responsible while achieving membership engagement. I'm supportive of the flagship projects that are underway and have momentum behind them, those being the golf course renovations and the marina wet slip expansion. Around the community, there's chatter about the amenities in the Bostwick area. I do attend various events at the Bostwick Park and Pavilion and acknowledge there is some level of opportunity for improvement. I want to call to your attention that the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee recently completed an overview of the strategic gaps and perceived needs for our community. The list is extensive, and from a practical matter, we need to acknowledge that we do not have unlimited funding to move forward with every request. The report is incredibly informative, and if you've not already done so, I encourage you to go out into the website and take a look at it. This is where my view of affordability comes into play. From an affordability perspective, Moss Creek is perceived as one of the best valued communities within the Low Country. That's impressive. However, to maintain that reputation for future years will not be easy. I believe we should be laser focused on the flagship projects our community has endorsed, as well as those that will add external market value and appeal to homeowners of the future. Over time, additional requests for funding will come up, and this is where I feel the board needs to be nimble and disciplined to balance that demand. I would be a proponent for utilizing established criteria to review new funding requests. The criteria would need to anchor to our community pillars and have thoughtful justification that shows affordability, community benefit, and enjoyment. I also believe that we need to start to explore other ideas to generate alternate sources of revenue. Moss Creek is heavily reliant upon new certificate fees and annual HOA dues for funding. I've had casual conversations about this topic with other members, and there are new revenue generation ideas out there. They're creative, they have potential, and they deserve future conversations. Every day, there are countless examples of Moss Creek's strong sense of community and why we all live here. If elected, my commitment to membership will keep our community vibrant, affordable, and build a stronger community for the future. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody up here for your, first of all, adherence to the strict 4-minute rule. We're going to open it up for questions. Payman and Pam are ready. And if there are any coming in from Zoom, Brenda is ready. And, all right, somebody will, Pam's coming.
Right over here.
Maybe you can meet them halfway in the aisles.
Hi, Debbie Loman, 287 Moss Creek Drive. Chris, what did you mean by, I believe you said reorganizing the administration building?
So let me just clarify. So one of the things that I've put into the information I provided was just the need, in my opinion, to evaluate what that space is currently utilized for. There may be other opportunities that serve the entire membership. Right now, there is limited value from having a real estate office, given that Moss Creek is almost fully built out now. So back several years ago, when we had a lot of available lots and space like that, it was a different business model, I think. And we have a lot of outside real estate agents that do sales and listings in Moss Creek. So again, it's a question of, is that space best supporting the needs of our membership? Given the fact that we've got a crunch on space and we use Bostwick as an overflow for classes, you know, the card room is heavily utilized. So are there those types of things that could be done to serve our membership better? Or should we be considering other revenue opportunities? Because, you know, while we are getting a monthly lease payment from the real estate office that occupies that portion of the space, perhaps there's other opportunities there that would give us more revenue. Thank you.
Okay, Lynn Ellen Gallert, 11 Fairlawn Court. This question is for Linnea. If you have to vote for 3 people, do you have to vote for all 3, or can you vote for 2 if you're not
Susanna's gonna help me with this, but I believe you have to vote for.
Yeah, our
3.
governing documents
Right.
require voting for 3, so you can vote for 3 of these, you can vote for 3 write-ins, you can vote for 2 of these, 1 write-in, the write-in has to be a Moss Creek member.
Right.
But you have to vote for 3.
You have to
or
vote
else
for
your vote
3.
doesn't count.
The voting site will not allow you to move forward unless you vote for 3. So, unless you got a paper ballot, if you send in a paper ballot with 2 votes, it would be disqualified. But the voting site keeps prompting you to go back and vote for 3. So, otherwise, you can't go through and submit.
I assumed if we went to open mic, we'd have more people, but that's okay. I'm not forcing anybody to do anything, but I heard complaints about having to write. So, that's fine. I'm, okay, I should have kept my mouth shut.
Last name is Traeger, 135 Moss Creek Drive. I just have a question for each one of you. Why do you feel Bostwick needs to get renovated or changed? And what kind of numbers are we talking about as far as renovation? If you are bored or if you're fine the way it is?
I'm going to start since I'm standing over, and we'll just pass it down for this one.
Yeah, thank you. Good question, because I think we've all mentioned that either in our comments or in the Q&A for the advocate. My view is that, first of all, I think Bostwick area is one of the most beautiful parts of our community. And I will say too that I am not in favor of a complete redo, building a hotel or a new restaurant or anything like that. But my view, from the time we first got here, of all the amenities in Moss Creek, when I step into that pavilion, it feels tired and old and just really needs refreshing. And so that's my view, and maybe to Chris's point, maybe some things could be moved to another location so we could get more use out of it. And I think there's other things that could be done there, maybe expanding the capacity of Mackey's Creek, that sort of thing. I'm certainly not in favor of spending $5 to $10 billion to upgrade that area, but I think it needs some attention.
I have to agree that it's a little neglected. That's what I think about when we had functions there, like private functions for my husband's golf group and so forth. You know, it's kind of, I wish it was just more perked up. I don't think we need a whole major overhaul, but I think it could be definitely improved.
Thanks for the question. It's an important one. I want to just clarify my perspective on it. Again, I'm also looking for a refresh of the pavilion itself. It's a bit dated, and it really limits, I feel, what we can and can't do there. It would be nice to have a little better kitchen setup to be able to better warm and support some of the functions that are there, as opposed to having to cart everything either from Bostwick or from the club or from Mackey's or from the clubhouse. So, you know, the things that I'm suggesting for consideration, again, I have not been involved with the Facilities and Infrastructure Committee, but I would be looking for a smaller facelift, if you will, of that space to better, again, support our membership. I'm not a fan right now that we have exercise classes in there, but I understand that we're using the space, and the space gets utilized heavily. I do enjoy the Monday Night Grillers events that's there. I do enjoy going to some of the Nature Club events and other things that they have down there. It just seems like there's some things we could be doing there, whether it's, you know, a better way to set up a white screen and some other things to just, again, support some of the functions that are there, and may even give us an opportunity for a couple of outside events if it's not in use by our membership. So that's my thought process for Bostwick.
Thank you. Yes, and actually, I'm aligned with the other candidates. From the Bostwick perspective, I was there on Tuesday night for an event, and when you kind of walk in, you just look around and it's tired. I think Claire used that word, it's tired. Maybe a facelift, some paint. You know, the kitchen does get used, but to what extent? And of course, the library's there, which is heavily used. So I do think that there is some thinking that needs to go into the future of Bostwick. But I am in the camp of maybe investing a little bit to spruce it up so that it's more enjoyable for our full community.
I'm tempted to say ditto and just stop there. But I think we need to look at what the numbers are, because my sense is that space is used a lot. And if it's used a lot, then the notion of just doing a little facelift maybe is not the answer. If that is the answer, then make it so it's more usable by more people. And I think Mackey's is a good example. There was a lot of controversy in Mackey over what to do down there, and Mackey's was the solution. And it was kind of a compromise solution. But if you build it, they will come, and a lot of people now complain that Mackey's isn't sufficient. And so I think sometimes, if we take a step back and really look at the usage, we can find that the most cost-effective way forward might in the beginning cost a little bit more money, but then provides a better member experience over the long period. So I think my position is, yes, we need to do something, but I would want to take a look at what would create the best possible solution, because that is really special space down there, the landscaping and everything.
Randy Mulder at 32 Toppin. My question is for Richard. In your write-up, you spoke of significantly raising the dues in the marina. And I just wanted to see if you could give me a detailed answer on that. You talked about the golf cart fee maybe being too high, but why would you want to significantly raise another amenity? I'm a newer member, and one of the reasons I moved here was the marina. Thank you.
Fair question. My understanding, and boat owners will tell me, I'm sure if I'm wrong, is that our marina fees are way below market value. And, you know, it is obviously an amenity. I know a number of people who said, I moved here because of the marina. Fair enough. But you can still get the benefit of Moss Creek and pay something closer to market value for that space, because that is prime, I'll call it real estate for lack of a better word, but you know, boat slips are prime property, and we want to give people value, but we also want to have something approaching fair value in return.
Can we go to another question? Because I had quite a few people with their hands up now. I encourage them. And we'll come back if we have time.
Right here.
Hi, I'm Dale Haney. I live at 151 Victoria Drive. I've lived here 32 years and I've never regretted living here. It's a wonderful place to live. But I'll tell you, one thing I miss is not being able to get a hard copy of The Devil's Advocate. I know the world is going online. But I'm not suggesting we need to print one out for every member and mail it to them. But could we maybe start producing a certain number that we have available at a pickup spot?
We
Okay, so
In the office,
we
in the
have
clubhouse?
those. We have them
That was a
available in the
question
office.
for Susanna.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
very
I'm
quickly.
not addressing that to the board, I'm just addressing that in general.
Okay.
Oh, we have printed copies at the office, and if you'd like to be on a mailing list to receive one every month, I will add you to a mailing list to receive one every month. But we do have printed copies at the administration office.
Question up front.
Hi, I'm Donna Newman and I live on Moss Creek Drive, 238. We've been here for 11 years, we totally love it. And this is really more of a comment than a question. I really appreciate all of you giving your viewpoints on all these different questions that have come up. I just would like to support the idea of a renovation at Bostwick. I know a lot of people feel that way. Just look at the difference of the club and look at how many activities are going on now here at the club. It's unbelievable. We can't even get in sometimes, so, you know, so, because there's so many people that want to do the various activities. So I think it's a real plus to concentrate some money towards that, and just wanted to support all of you because you all seem to agree. Thank you.
Okay. Question?
I came with her, I just want to add one comment.
Comment or question?
No, just one comment along with
Real
that.
quick one?
That has got to be the most beautiful place around, and it is not taken advantage of.
Questions over here?
Did we have somebody with a question over there or not? Or anybody online? Nope?
Hi, my name is John Jordan, live at 127 Victoria Drive, and same street as Dell. I've been here 25 years, and over those years I've seen the addition of a lot of amenities, all of which people appreciate and enjoy and participate in. I'm asking everybody who are running for the board, are there any additional amenities you think Moss Creek needs?
Chris, can I start with you? Aren't you happy?
I was going to be the last one to say ditto, but...
No, I'm sorry. Switching the order up.
I would take a slower approach to going big at this point. I feel like we've done a fair amount of activity the last few years that was long overdue. We are reaping the rewards from that. We have a busy year planned next year. We're considering the marina expansion, so that is still to be discussed in detail. That's a work in progress. Beyond that, I feel like we need to roll up our sleeves a little bit more to finalize some of the thoughts we've had around strategic vision for Moss Creek. So I would say right now, I don't have enough information to give you a definitive answer to say we must do this or we must do that. I'm going to need a lot more data, including input from the member surveys that are going to start happening 3 times a year. So please use that as an opportunity to give us your feedback and ideas and suggestions. Yes and no or ditto is not as helpful as giving us some articulation on your thoughts. So thank you.
Go that way. That's fine.
I think that we need to continually monitor and improve our present amenities. I think we, as Chris said, we've done a lot. And we've added the more modern things like pickleball. And, you know, up to date, we've updated other things, including the club. So I think we're pretty much good as far as amenities goes. I also would like to compliment Melissa and her staff, if she has a staff, I'm not sure of that, but Melissa and her staff for providing so much for kids to do. I meant to say that in my speech before, that she has really provided a lot of stuff for kids to do, and I'm happy to see that.
Yeah, like everyone, I really am pleased with the amenities we have, and I do believe that part of our strategic plan, when we develop it, ought to be a long-term capital improvement plan that would include not only things that need to be improved or redone, but looking at growth opportunities. I believe as a board member, our job is to solicit the input from the members. I don't have anything in mind that as a new amenity, I can't think of one, but the one thing I'll go out on a limb and say I think would be worth doing here, not really new, it goes with golf, but I think our practice facility could be improved and maybe redone.
To answer your question specifically, John, I have 2 ideas that have come to mind over the time I've been thinking about this. The first, and this would not, I don't believe, cost a huge amount, is finding an area for a community garden where people have the little boxes and they plant tomatoes and squash and vegetables and that sort of thing. Other communities have that. There's space over to the left of the 14T on the south that I think would be good. There's a lot of sunlight there. And so I think that's something the community could consider if there's interest in it. And that's an amenity that would not cost a huge amount. I agree with Claire. I think that the practice area, especially the short game practice area, could be significantly improved. And I'm not sure what the cost of that would be, but I think that knowing that that gets a lot of use, I think that would be a useful amenity as well.
That's a good idea, community garden. Let's put that on the list. So from the perspective, I'm the last one here, so kind of ditto with the other candidates. I think that the current physical amenities that we have that we utilize every single day, I think that infrastructure is already there. I do think that as Scott continues to lead our community down the 10-year path and with our goal and the future of Moss Creek, I think that some of the investment that we need to make into our existing amenities will ebb and flow and will come out with that plan. So when we're talking about how much funding do we have, do we want to invest in, let's say, a little bit more of a refresh on Bostwick, that will come into play. But maybe there'll be something like a community garden that will come out, and again, from your suggestions, that might be something really easy or simple to implement. So can I ask the neighbor who submitted the question if there's an idea out there for us?
I was thinking about log throwing.
Let's add that to the Cider Fest. Why don't we add that to the Cider Fest?
Always dangerous giving certain people the microphone, John.
I'm Robert Renix. I live 297 Moss Creek Drive. Been there for 33 years. Been around, been on the board a couple of times, so I know how important it is. And you've got all 5 of you seem to be very capable people. However, I noticed in the written resume that at least 2 and maybe 3 of the contestants spend part-time elsewhere during the year. And my question is, could you elaborate on that? And I found it to be a full-time job, but I'd like to get your comments on that.
That's a really good question. And when I was approached about possibly running for the board, one of the first questions I had is, I am here part-time, does this make sense? And the people who approached me said yes, especially with Zoom, it can be done. I asked the nominating committee that same question, and they also said yes, not a problem. I mean, I have to be willing to make certain concessions in my schedule, which I'm happy to do. But then again with Zoom, I was told that this is a manageable situation. I'm sure the others have too. I certainly spoke with present and former board members to make sure that this was a doable situation before I agreed to go through the process. So I'm told that this is manageable. I've been assured it's manageable as long as I, and I assume the others, are willing to make appropriate changes in our schedule, because there are some meetings that where attendance in person is really preferable. So I appreciate your question.
I do, Ginny, are you here? Hold on. Here, sorry, I think you were the only other one.
We go to New York for about 8 weeks every summer. However, I flew here to be here, and certainly I can adjust that anyway. Delta is very, very handy. Burlington, Vermont is a nice airport to leave from, and Savannah is a nice airport to come to. So I have no problem with that. I've been on the ARB for 3 years, being away every summer, and I have had no problem being on Zoom from a rinky-dink town in New York called Ellenberg Depot. That's exactly what it is, whatever you're thinking. It doesn't even have a traffic light. So, you know, I can zoom in here anytime I want, and I can fly in here anytime I want. I don't consider that a handicap. I was more part-time when we first moved here. We only came here for the winter. But 7 years ago, we moved here to a permanent home.
And I just wanted to add one other footnote. We have Jan Alpert, who's here, who usually is away and has served on the board twice now, so.
And I never missed a board meeting.
And she never missed a board meeting, for those of you who couldn't hear her, so it is doable. So we have, right.
Hi, my name is Mona Malsheimer. I live at 51 Toppin Drive. I have a question for each of the board. You piqued my interest with your garden. I would like to know what your philosophy is about the deer population in Morse Creek. And keeping in mind that some of you are now advocating to have a garden, also keeping in mind about what about the rest of the beautification of Morse Creek property, in particular those of us that live in the back on the Morse Creek property. You know, so my question is, please, for all of you, what is your philosophy about the deer population in Morse Creek? And if you determine that there are too many deer per acre, how do you remedy that situation? Or do you remedy that situation? Thank you.
I get to go first. Okay, well, I was fortunate enough to have been part of a conversation with Susanna to get a little bit educated on what happens within the low country every so many years to address the deer population. And so, as she submitted in the memo that everybody received, the last time the deer count was done was in 2008. Keep me honest on that.
The last time we did a deer count was 2 years ago.
Oh, 2 years ago?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Susanna is doing the needful, and she is engaged with the appropriate authorities to come in and do that deer count again, right? She stated it in her memo. So when that information comes back and they tell us whether or not we have enough deer or we have too many, things are going to unfold. And what I'm going to tell you is that Moss Creek is a nature community. And regardless if it's a deer population, there are populations of animals in many environmentally delicate ecosystems across the world where this exact same philosophy happens. Because if you don't manage the deer population, they eat the bushes, which impacts birds, which impacts insects, and so on and so on and so forth. So the reason why this is done is for the better of the total of the whole. So I'm not going to be the person to say what the decision is, because that's why we have Susanna, and that's why we have Susanna. Who gets it next?
I think the board sets policy, and it's up to Scott and his team to decide when to kill the deer. You know, honestly, I don't know enough about it. I know that there are rules, regulations, procedures to when it's necessary to eliminate deer, and we follow that. In addressing what I think the other question is about the back of the property, that's always going to be a question of cost, because I understand cleaning, if I'm talking about the right areas, cleaning the areas out, you know, there's a lot of cost to that, and cleaning out the kudzu and all of that. And so how you balance that cost with other needs is difficult to say. But my overall philosophy is we treat all of it as a whole. The golf course and the grounds really complement each other. You know, those of us who look out over the marsh, maybe on one side of our houses, look out over the golf courses on the other side. And so there's beauty in both directions. And so my overarching philosophy is protecting the beauty of the neighborhood at all costs.
Yeah, I expected that question. So, first of all, I would say that, like everybody else, I mean, I love the nature here at Moss Creek. I said that up front. That's why we fell in love with this place, and we love the deer. We absolutely love them. We admired 4 of them as we were just before we came here this afternoon. I do believe, though, that that these things do have to be managed. And when I was playing golf on Tuesday, the group I was with, or Wednesday, we saw a very scrawny looking deer on the property. And it was not afraid of us, it didn't hardly move. And what I understand, and DNR manages this, is left unchecked, these deer will suffer disease, they won't have enough to eat. The population has grown for a whole bunch of reasons, one of which is that, the natural predators are not in the area anymore. So, I think we have to do the count and take the advice of the professionals. I mean, and I think that, none of us want to see a mass killing of deer, but I think we have to do what's right for the overall environment. And it's consistent with one of our core values, which is published on the MCOA Strategic Vision Tracker. If you look at it, we have a core value of environmental conservation. And I know everybody on the board buys into that, and I would too. Thank you.
I agree with letting the professionals assess the situation. If we have deer that are unhealthy or we don't have enough foraging for the deer, then that's not a good idea. And as Robin said, it goes down. If the deer eat all the bushes and the birds can't get the berries, then it's a big thing. So I think that what everybody else has said, we need to leave it to the professionals and see what happens.
I'll just add my observational comments to that question. We regularly, meaning at least every night, have a visit by 8 to 12 deer every night. And I have seen the health deteriorate on the deer, and that's a concern. So let's let the professionals do their job. Let's let them tell us what is appropriate to address this. I'm okay with them eating all my bushes. It just means no flowers, but that's okay. But again, I'm looking purely with my eyes and seeing that they're just not healthy. So, thank you.
A question over here.
This is Lee Traeger. I've been a full-time resident here at 135 Moss Creek since only last summer. I just wanted to follow up on a question or a comment that Ginny made in terms of just the communication. I do have to say, having the website to get not only some of the historical documentation, but just to get a feeling for the community and how things have developed over the 50 years here. So, but back to Ginny's comment and several areas that you touched on in communication too, is that is there any consideration for a portal? So that, I understand that would have a cost for your software, whoever you have hired for your software would be able to gather input from the community members on certain things. And why I say that is it can give you both immediate feedback and also, and I forgot one thing, is thank you all for taking time to consider it to run for this board. It makes a big difference. And it's a big sacrifice. But to have a portal to where people can comment not only on an event they just might have attended, or whether it's the marina and stuff like that, there's so many ideas within your community, and just to be able to gather some of that on a portal and then have it go into posterity where other people, like I've only been here just over a year on a full-time basis, can come back and review some of those things. Thanks.
So that really wasn't a comment, it was just a,
Well, a question of, is there any consideration for a board?
I'm gonna
So
stick,
members can add, you know.
Right.
I can respond.
okay. I was struggling with, I don't want to bring in other board members, because that's really a question for the communication.
Yeah, let me just give you my perspective. We have several mechanisms right now. We have post-event surveys, bulk dining and other activities that go out, other event surveys. That's a piece of information that comes in as input to our administration team. We also have the sounding board, which is something relatively new, which gives everybody an opportunity to send in whatever feedback they would like to share, and that is accumulated and utilized. You also have the ability to send the board members and or administration a note. I mean, I welcome that communication from members if they've got suggestions, thoughts. I take phone calls regularly from people and have a nice conversation. So I appreciate what you're asking, but I mean, you know, the surveys we do now, it'll be 3 times a year, that'll also be an element. I'm not quite clear enough on what a portal might look like and who would utilize it and how. So I feel like we've got several mechanisms now, but I do appreciate that suggestion, and I'll have to see where we'll go with it.
If I could on that, because that sounded more like a suggestion, and we have a board member who is the head of the communications, I'm just going to land that with you to have as a suggestion that came out of the meeting today. We had a question over here, I know.
Hi, I'm Carol Newman. I live at 82 Victoria Drive, and my question is for each of the candidates, what your opinion is on our frontage on 278. From where we've improved it, it looks lovely, but from there to where we meet the Colleton property, it is just horrendous, in my opinion. So I'd like to know your opinions and what could be done. Thank you.
3 or 4 years ago, when I was on the Green and Grounds Committee, this came up, and my guess is it comes up every year. And I've been told then that the cost of cutting out the kudzu is just extraordinary, and it's extraordinarily difficult. And so that's one of those. I absolutely agree with you that I don't know that eyesore is the right word, but it's certainly not as appealing as it could be. But then the question is, how much do you want to spend when you've got other competing costs? And at least my view would be that some of the other issues are more pressing. If there's extra money, or if there's a way to reduce the cost or cover the cost, I certainly think it should be done. But at least in my view, that's probably fairly low on the other priorities compared to other priorities.
So let me clarify, is that what your question is about? Is it about the kudzu that is on the retaining walls along 278 specifically? Yeah.
The entire appearance along 278 of what we put out to the public when they go by Moss Creek and they see all of that. I don't know how else to explain it, but.
Yeah. Well, I want to first and foremost thank the folks who volunteer to pick up litter every couple of months along 278, because I think that actually helps quite as well. And then also, I'm going to point you guys back to the F&I study that was just done, because that is actually addressed in the study, and it talks about what it would take and the pros and cons to address the overgrown, I guess, if you will, kudzu or plant vegetation that is being held up by the erected fencing that goes along 278. And so it's known, it's not a secret, right? It's something that the community feels is needed and necessary. But I think to, you know, my other candidate here, Rick's point on my left, I do think it is something. You know, we have to come to a point where we decide, do we want to freshen up Bostwick, or do we want to address the kudzu, right? And so it's one of these things that I think thoughtful consideration will need to be put together for that.
Okay, I'll give you my Green and Grounds response to that. It's an opportunity for sure, but the question is, what's going to be the cost to clear and what's the frequency? We took out the sign that was furthest west from here, partially, I think, in response to not wanting to maintain that far down on 278. What I think we have for maybe more realistic opportunities to freshen up the area a little bit and make it so it's not onerous from a cost perspective. We may be able to do a little bit more work near that most western sign, the new one we put in, just to freshen that area up a little bit more. There is a perception by many that once you get past that sign, there's an expectation that that's not necessarily a true connection to Moss Creek. So again, it just, since Matthew, the vines have just gone bonkers. Every year they are just growing, and it's very hard to manage. But you know, what I would think we could do, perhaps, is maybe a little bit of limbing up in front of the equestrian center to make that more of a focal point. Some of the limbs are a little low right now. And again, that's a nominal cost to do that and to do a little more cleanup in that area. I did notice the other day it looked a little bit haggard, so I'll take that away and we'll put that on up for discussion at our next meeting. So thank you.
I agree, it's not, excuse me, I agree it's not very nice looking with all those vines, but kudzu is like taking over the south. And even if we trim it back, it's going to come back again. There's no getting rid of it. That's all I can say to it. So maybe we could trim it back a little. Maybe we could plant some shrubs further down in front of it to mask it. But getting rid of it, it won't happen. Sorry.
Yeah, I also share the opinion, and my wife and I have talked about it many times, and so I will acknowledge some of the improvements that have been made, the new signage and so forth, and perhaps I kind of agree, maybe we could do a little more landscaping out there. But I also understand, and I may be wrong on this, but I also understand that this that provides some noise abatement for the people who live on Stablegate. And I've heard some of the residents or members who live there would not like that because it would aggravate that problem.
We had a question right behind you, and then we'll. Oops.
Hi, thank you very much. My name is Debbie Sabera-Wiggin. I live in 15 Fairlawn Court, and I want to thank you very much for doing all you're going to do. But I do have a question, and as we know, all our costs are going up and up, and we have labor, we have weather, we have facilities, we have amenities, blah, blah, blah. I'd like to hear from each one of you, what's just your your priority of trying to keep those costs in check?
Sure. The least financial person who's sitting here. I think that our best place to invest money is in our amenities. That's just my opinion. I think the Moss Creek looks really nice, and we have made it looks better now than it has across the years that I've been coming here. That I've lived here, and I think to keep our amenities up so that everybody can use them, so that nobody has to say, well, how come there's no more bocce balls or something like that. That's, to me, the place to spend the money, even at the cost of not so many flowers.
Yes, thank you. Tough question, and quite frankly, you know, we've had a period of pretty high inflation, and so things do cost more, and I think all of us here are homeowners, and I'll use that as an analogy. When you own a home, you can't expect that you know, over a 50-year lifetime or whatever your expected time of that home is going to be, that you never have to, you know, invest in it. You
You have to, otherwise it will just degrade, and that's true of our community too. So I do think we, as a board, need to, you know, to prioritize where our money needs to be spent, but we have to, you know, we have to maintain the asset. If we don't do that, then quite frankly, our home values will start to drop off. I don't think anybody would like that either. So I think that's part of the hard work that the board has to do with member improvement. And I don't have an easy answer on where I would cut back, but we just have to be good stewards of the financial resources we have and make the right decisions for the community.
I think that part of the reason I use the golf carts as a bullet point, if you will, is I think when we look at costs and expenses and expenditures in detail, in my experience, there's often ways to cut or where you can budget more effectively. And this is not being critical of the present board or past boards. It's just that institutions fall into a rhythm, and sometimes if you look at it with fresh eyes, you see that there's a different way of doing things. I don't know that this translates. I think it probably does. When I was running a law office, we often found that, well, if we budget for something in 5 years, that we know, like a new computer system and that sort of thing, if we budgeted, say, $50,000, but in 5 years, it would cost $65,000. So we've never budgeted enough. And so we often found that sometimes buying things now, even though it feels more expensive, in the long run is more cost effective. And so it seems that there is a possibility that by really focusing on this, and I think that's what Scott has been doing as well, is there's ways to cut costs, control costs, minimize the rise in costs. But there's going to be a constant need to improve the assets, to protect the assets. That is a critical piece of this.
Yep, very well said. But I also think from the cost perspective, we've all experienced it with inflation, right? And it's been a topic that's been talked about throughout Moss Creek with regards to multiple meetings. So we have to, as a board, address it and deal with it head on. But I'm going to kind of go like this a little bit, because in my my speech a few minutes ago, I talked about increasing revenue. And I do think that that is an area where we need to actually start thinking differently. And on the marketing committee, it's been something that we've started to lightly talk about. And like I said, there's really good ideas out there, right? So if you can, let's say, I'm going to throw it out, and Brenda, don't kill me, but we've talked about more weddings. We've got this beautiful clubhouse. If weddings gave us revenue, why wouldn't we have a conversation about the potential? So if you want to offset your cost, you can also increase your revenue, and that can help make things stay steady. So I do think that in the future, we need to have some additional conversations to open up the dialogue for increased revenue on possibly things that we haven't done in the past.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the leadership that both our controller and our treasurer have given us the last few years. There's been a lot of work that they've had to do to overcome the past, where we really weren't keeping pace and setting us up for the future appropriately. And I think we've taken a very methodical path to get to where we are now. We've been very responsible in our response. I mean, I'd love to see this clubhouse full every day, honestly. That would drive at least, you know, some nominal increases in revenue. The comment about outside weddings, that's a great revenue item because they do pay a premium for the space. However, I would not want it to impinge on the the benefit and the enjoyment of our membership. So we've got to balance that as well. You know, again, it comes down to if we're looking to better manage the HOA element, the fee that's get passed along to our homeowners, we've got to find other revenue sources. So, you know, in closing, I would just say, you know, we've got a pretty regimented setup right now. We've got to trust our admin team with their recommendations, including our controller, and with our treasurer, who I really, again, appreciate his leadership and how he's taking us into the future. So I think it looks good for the future, but just bear with us as a method to what we're doing, and that will be more evident as we get more into the budget cycle.
Over here.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2, 3, that's, have him set up, he's next. I have one in the back and then one up front.
Hi, this is Greg Lula from 24 Talbot Drive. The question is for Ginny and for Rick. Given that you're not here 100% of the time, I have a really quick 3-part question. Where do you vote? What kind of driver's license do you have? And are the plates on your car South Carolina plates?
I vote in South Carolina. I have a South Carolina plate on my 2004 Thunderbird. But on the front it says, I love New York. I'm sorry, I had a bracket to fill. I pay taxes in South Carolina. I live in a camper in New York. So that's it.
I vote in South Carolina, I have a South Carolina driver's license, and our cars have South Carolina plates. So I consider South Carolina my permanent, my home.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Deborah Degnan. I've lived here 23 years. I absolutely adore this place. I've seen many, many improvements while I've lived here, and they do cost money. But as this clubhouse, you can see, turned out to be beautiful. Everything, gatehouse, Bosford used to be just kind of a shack with screens, so with pool, everything. But when I come home and I get ready to turn into Moss Creek with our beautiful new sign, the landscaping, I think, is dreadful. I don't know who decides the flowers. They have redone them twice, or 3 times they pulled out the first ones they planted because they died. And I think people rushing down 278 don't need a variety of flowers. We have like 5 different kinds of flowers growing in there, all different sizes, colors. Just copy the John Reed's places, Belfair, Colleton. Theirs are always growing. Theirs are always nice and neat and even, and they're brightly colored. So I don't know who gets that, who does that? Who's in charge of picking the flowers?
So this is not a question for the board, but this would be a great question for you to send to Scott, because that's a day-to-day administration.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Do we have one final question for the board candidates?
Hello, my name is Barb Simotakis. My husband Nick, who just stepped out. We live at 3 Palm Island as of Sunday, so we're very new. And I was surprised to read, and I could be wrong, that only 60% of members do the activity fee. I think that's what I read. And so my question to everybody is, do you feel that that's a low amount? You know, and if so, how do you think we can encourage more people to be part of this great activity fee, which seems to be also a great value?
Yeah, thank you. And I'll add to your point that many of our surrounding communities don't have an activity fee. It's just all baked into their HOA fee, so everybody pays it. That said, though, and I'll speak for myself, when I was here full-time but still working, because I had an option, I didn't pay the activity fee because I wasn't taking advantage of the amenities. And I think that the many people make that choice based on whatever issues or whatever their life is like at the time. We've talked about that on the Finance Committee, and I'm not sure off the top of my head if that would require a change in our bylaws or some other governance document. But yeah, it's recognized and under discussion.
Oh, I'm not asking to remove it, I'm just wondering why more people don't use it.
Yeah, I think I'm speaking for some. I'll speak, as I said, I spoke for myself, that I chose not to pay the fee when I wasn't able to play golf, and I'm not into racket sports, so for me the big thing was the golf, and I don't have a boat either, so.
When we came here in 1998, as I mentioned before, we were here only in the winter from October to May. And the amenity fee was $5,000. Now granted, you got a golf cart, but my husband and I, and you had to pay it in cash in January, period. And when you're only here for 4 or 5 months a year, that was a big hit. Then along, I don't remember exactly the year, but probably in the early 2000s, Brian Haley, a resident, and his cohorts came up with the idea that, and planned it all out, that we could still support our amenities with $1,000 amenity fee, $1,000 amenity fee. And that has of course gone up because things have gone up. We got pickleball courts, we have 2 beautiful pools, we have a fitness area. So I don't think the percentage is low, because I think it's probably more than it was in 1998 when we came here because of that. I don't play golf, I don't play tennis, we don't have a boat. We pay the amenity fee because my husband plays golf, that's it. And I use the pool. But that's all, and we pay the amenity fee. So I'm just saying that I don't think the percentage is low, because there are people like me, you know, who physically can't do some of the things that are amenities, and but who have chosen still to live here, because who wouldn't want to live here, you know, to be honest. So I just think I don't think it's low.
First, let me welcome you to Moss Creek. It's nice to have you here. I would say I would have a little different opinion on that. I do believe it is low, honestly. However, recognizing that there are some members that choose not to play golf, tennis, pickleball, or boat, that would drive their decision based on how it's structured currently. So, you know, we of course would love to see everybody, you know, involved and utilizing the amenities. I know, as Claire had said, they are looking at that right now to see how we could get more involvement with our membership. So, you know, there's more to follow on that, but hope that answered your question.
I echo the welcome. This is a great place to live, so you'll enjoy it for years. The amenity fee has been talked about, whether or not it's low, it's high, however you feel it is. But honestly, I think we should ask the 40% why they don't. Let's get our community together, let's talk to the 40% and say, why don't you? We may receive answers such as like Ginny, but maybe they'll come back with, well, if you priced it differently, I would uptake that. Or who knows what they would say. So I'm a proponent of engaging more with the community on more of like, call it a focus group level, to actually get direct answers to those type of questions. But we do, you know, want to say that it is recognized and the Finance Committee is starting to dig into it.
Great minds think alike. That's exactly what I was going to say, is in the days of targeted communications, we can ask. We can reach out to people who don't pay the amenity fees, homeowners who've chosen not to, and not in a threatening way, not in an aggressive way, but in a very respectful way. Why don't you? If it's because they're only here part-time, fair enough. But if it's because of cost, if it were structured differently, maybe we get a different answer. And I think that's true for use of all the facilities. I think that there's a large number of people who don't use the clubhouse very often. And I think it would be useful to reach out to them as well. What can we do to make you feel more welcome in the clubhouse? What can we do to make you feel more welcome at events? What can we do to make you feel more welcome in the community? So I think we have the tools to increase the communications in a very targeted way.
He's got a
Just a question. When this came up in one of the write-ups, I pulled out the charges as they're described. The first sentence on that amenity fee is the amenity fee is an optional fee. And then it goes on to describe if you're not subscribing to the amenity fee, you will be charged a per-use fee. So is the assumption people aren't paying the per-use fee? It's just a point of question.
I don't understand so because it's optional, we don't force, prior board member now speaking, so it is your choice to do the fee,
right,
or the alternative is you pay a per use.
Correct. That was my question. It
yes.
sounds like the assumption behind is 60% too low or whatever is that people who aren't subscribing to the amenity fee aren't paying at all.
No, some are, some aren't. Yes, Ginny's not playing golf, so she's not paying a daily golf fee.
Right.
But if she plays, she pays. That's,
right. That's
okay.
the point.
Yeah. Right, she does. Okay. I promised a hard stop at 5:30, and unfortunately I have 3 minutes to wrap this up with stuff I need to read. So, thank you all, especially the candidates, the members who are here, the members who are on Zoom, for participating in this critical meeting. Now, before we adjourn, I must review what happens next in the voting procedure. Okay, voting procedure is handled by a third-party vendor, Association Voting. If you requested paper ballots, those will be mailed to you by Association Voting, and you will mail them back to Association Voting in an envelope that you will get from them. Electronic voting will open on Sunday, September 15th, and will remain open until noon on Tuesday, October 15th. Ballots can be dropped off or filled out between 4 and 5 p.m. at the clubhouse on the day of the meeting, for those of you who procrastinate terribly. Hopefully you have plenty of time between September 15th and October 15th, so you won't be running here at 4 o'clock on the 15th. All meeting materials will be posted on the member website to include the agenda, financial materials, candidates' bios, and questions and answers. Candidates with the top 3 highest votes will serve a 3-year term. Finally, regarding the special member meeting, it will be held on Tuesday, October 15th at 5 p.m. right here in the clubhouse with a Zoom option. The agenda will include a president's report, a treasurer's report, the general manager's report, clearly the announcement of the board of director, voting results, and there will be a question and answer period as well. So now to wrap it up, I do again want to thank everyone who came here, all your great questions, thank our 5 candidates for all their wonderful answers, the staff for the support they gave us in connecting the Zoom and having the video ready, and the candidates will be around if you wish to speak to them individually. But we told them they could, they don't have to stay past like 15 minutes. So, quick question. Oh, Chris has a quick question for me.
How many do you vote for?
How many do you need to vote for? 3? 3, 3, 3. Yes. So if you fill out a page, so online it will force you to fill out 3. One of them can be a write-in, but the write-in has to be a member here. I will tell you, we've had occasions in the past where people have written in Mickey Mouse, and guess what? Your votes don't count. So 3 people, one of on the venue. Thank you.